Hey YouTubers, it's Tony, and I'm going to talk to you today on why depression is the worst disease there is known to man. By far the worst. Okay? I know if you're watching this, and if you got something else like cancer or something, you're probably like, dude, what the hell? You're crazy. But let me explain myself. Okay? And of course, depression, I lump in everything that's going on with the mind. I lump it in from schizophrenia to OCD, anxiety, all that stuff, or just a chronic acid-eating depression. Because the whole world is subjective, okay? There really is no right, there really is no wrong, there really is no black, there really is no white. It's all sensory input into our brains. That's all it is. That's all it is. For all we know, none of this might not even be real, okay? With that being said, depression affects the way we sense the world, okay? If I look at a sunset, it's going to be different than how other people look at the sunset. Nobody probably looks at the same thing and thinks the same thing. If I look at orange, maybe your orange is my purple. Maybe your purple is my green. All subjective. Everything. That's why there really is no right, there really is no wrong. But depression affects the sensory system, the nervous system. And it will physiologically take a toll on the body. I have filtered things in my mind, whether it be genetics or environment, in such a heinous way that I can't even hold a job. That I could barely get out of bed some days. And I know a lot of people suffer this, and it's true. And the worst part of it is a lot of people think it's an excuse. I can never call in to work with depression, because if I do, it's not an acceptable medium. It's not an acceptable thing to say. If you have the flu, if you have the cold, if you have cancer, if you have anything else, well, hell. The world gives you sympathy. Depression? Nah, there's no sympathy for it. There's no sympathy for it. In fact, I have to lie about it. I'm tired of lying about it. Even since my past videos, I'm still fighting this monster, the way I perceive the world. But I gotta lie about it. I can't go and tell my bosses these things. That's why one of the other hardest things about depression, especially being a male with depression, because we don't really have support groups. Most of us will suffer alone, to the point where our coping mechanisms get less and less, the pain becomes more and more, and when you become a male around my age, it's the highest percentage of suicide, successful suicide, that there is. Because quite frankly, they just don't mess around. They're like, I have had enough. I've had enough of this shit. So, it is definitely why depression is the worst. And plus, let's say you have depression and then inevitably you get another disease because it affects your nervous system so much, it affects your cardiovascular system, that affects all the systems in your body. Okay, there's things you're going to be doing. Your coping mechanisms are going to become dangerous. First of all, you might get addicted to sex. You might get addicted to alcohol. You might get addicted to any number of things. Maybe just working too much, just to escape that depression. Everybody has their own coping mechanisms. Some people got to stay home. Some people got to be constantly doing stuff. Who knows? It's all sensory. It's all how the brain processes in the subconscious. The problem is this. Eventually, the person with these mental disorders, with this depression, will get another disease. Just like anybody does. Doesn't matter how happy you are. So then you got a depressed guy who gets cancer down the road, or gets diabetes. And then the feelings they get from having that, if they feel like a failure or a loser or a monster to society right now, it is going to be exponentially exploding in their mind. Psychologically, it's scary for them to think of the what ifs. It's almost crippling to think about that. It's more scary of their mind is going to interpret it, the disease as the actual disease itself, for a lot of these people. For me, especially. It's just scary as hell. For these people, life is like a bad ride and they can't get off of it. Or they get desperate to get off of it. The only way off of it is death. That's how they begin to think. And most people will not understand that. If you're watching this and you have deep depression, don't expect the world to understand. My first lesson is love yourself, And don't expect sympathy from the world. If you expect that, you'll be endlessly disappointed. Okay? There really is no trick on getting by it, except you have to believe that you can beat it. Or just accept it. It may not be the best advice, but there is a peace in accepting it. Sometimes in accepting things, you let things go to a certain degree, and it gives you a certain degree of peace. Okay? But I'm telling you, don't expect the world to give you sympathy for it, because there's not going to be any. So you got to give yourself sympathy. So with that being said, that is why depression is the worst disease in the world. By far, the worst. Some people, because of the neurotransmitters, genetics, whatever, cannot handle. And it's not their fault. I mean, it's not your fault at all if you can't handle it. Somewhere along the line, society has failed you. There is help out there, but expecting you to get the help by yourself, that's ridiculous, because it is your mind that needs help in the first place, and people expect your mind to get you out of it. Other people who have healthy minds need to help you. But people can fall through the cracks all the time. You know what happens to people with deep depression? I'll tell you what happens. Either they go to prison from their coping mechanisms, doing drugs or whatnot, or because they have other mental issues going on and they can't hold on a job or things, and so they just kind of, who knows what happens. The society just kind of throws them away. That's what happens. Not a lot of sympathy. You got to be your own protector, or you become homeless. Can't hold a job. Can't hold a job. Need a job. You can't keep things together. Because your mind's going a million miles a minute. Nobody's helping you out. That's what happens. That's something that I face. That's something that I face. I'm very lucky. I have a lot of people in my life who love me, but even then, they don't really understand either. So I still worry about that stuff all the time. But you gotta be your own fighter. The two best coping mechanisms, though, by far, that you can do for yourself, and I'll just say this before I leave, is meditation. If you can somehow just calm the storms for a little bit, control your mind, or exercise. Great. If you can stay away from the other more dangerous coping mechanisms, just do it, because drugs aren't going to do a thing for you. Make you feel good at the moment, but you're hurting the mind, which needs help. Okay? I'm not your daddy, though. Again, it's all perception. For some people, it may actually help. So I'm just saying. But that's my argument on why depression is the worst disease in the world.